right, thank you, Dustin. Welcome, everybody. This presentation is going to talk about how social justice issues kind of start and are addressed from your college library. And one way to remediate a lot of those issues is to look for open educational resources so that we can help students have access to information from the first day and beyond, and to not drown in what we're seeing now, which is an unsurmountable amount of debt. A little bit about me. My name's Isabel Duque, and I'm a librarian at Miami-Dade College. And as a librarian, at the heart of what we do is having that stubborn desire to give people access to information and help them, whatever their journey might be or their end dream might be, to connect them with those correct resources. So let me get started. All right, so here before you, you're going to see a slide that asks the question, what are we cultivating as a people, as a country? And we're looking at all these different issues, and hopefully we're starting to see that everything is very much interdependent. So even if you look at the bottom part where it looks at education, education is very much a system within all the other ecosystems. And it's something that actually touches everyone from the minute they're born. A lot of children are pushed into childcare services, early education programs. Then you go through K through 12, even if you're homeschooled. And again, part of that American dream, we're definitely aiming to succeed, whatever that might be. And a lot of the time, that idea of success is deeply tied to education, okay, and having access to it. So the argument that I'm going to make today is that the idea of our education system is deeply embedded in our culture and also has a huge impact with access to healthcare, because practically all our jobs are tied to the opportunity of having healthcare, unless you're part of that socioeconomic class that has to do with not being able to afford it. It also is tied to how vulnerable we are when it comes to food insecurity, okay? A huge part of our education does not touch upon nutrition or financial literacy. And these are all different things that, again, at the nucleus really tied to information, okay? So in hopes of this presentation, I hope to look at what is our part in the system, and how are we contributing to some sort of justice, global justice. And in part, in a college, we can definitely look at libraries and librarians and helping bridge that gap, okay? So again, finding ways to become a little bit more sustainable, resilient, and definitely keeping a keen eye on equity, okay? So before I wanted you to look at some emerging trends in higher education. Unfortunately, given the situation we're in right now, this is acutely evident. We're looking at the digitization of higher education, okay? We're looking at different virtual spaces for us to for this learning to happen and for this engagement and collaboration to ensue. Definitely everybody in higher education, students, faculty, administrators, everyone involved is definitely asking that question of what's going to happen post coronavirus, okay? Can we go back as business as usual? Need we have other plans in place, or start practicing our different modes of instruction that will lead us down another path? And also the idea, because again, if you're in higher education, you constantly hear what's happening to enrollment, what's happening to success rates, graduation rates, funding. So this is always constantly buzzing in the back of the head of every person that pertains to the education system, from the end user to the head, okay? Also, we're looking at what are the different literacies that are being given to our students. Are they information literate? Do they know how to find quality information, how to evaluate it? how to engage with it, how to actually ethically create it, which is called meta literacy. Because again, a lot of us ask our students to write essays, create a project, but then what happens to it once it's turned in? Do they see it as something scaffolding, as learning, or is it just, you know, a single use, kind of like plastic, a single use educational item that they produce and then that's it? We're also looking at how do we innovate collaboration? And it's not just students working with other students, but students working with other faculty, students working with community agencies, other organizations and institutions, because that's in reality what they're going to start to engage in once they go out into the field. Yes, they have to work in teams with their professional peers, but also reaching out to everybody else in their community that they serve. And very much we're looking at school structures. Pretty much higher education has been the same here in the United States for over 200 years, kind of that brick and mortar idea of a traditional school. And I think it's being very much challenged. So again, all of this is in our midst. And now I want us to keep that in mind when we look at social justice issues and education, okay? So this is what leads me to the concept of information privilege, okay? When it comes to attaining a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree, a master's, a doctorate, even a certificate, pretty much almost every class asks you to buy educational material. And this is where a lot of people get a barrier. When they ask you for even something as a mini term, so a class that's 8 weeks long, and they ask you to buy a textbook that costs $200, $300, $400. And this is where either students put off the idea of taking that course or actually take the leap and they don't buy the course material. And what a disadvantage does that place you in once you're in that course, okay? So just forgive me for reading off the slide, but I think it's just so succinct. Information privilege is the idea that access to information is largely dependent on one's status, affiliation, or power. And power, you can pretty much go run the gamut of it. It's not just economic power, okay? Not all of us have the same access to buying power, okay? Even now, I love when we're talking about coronavirus and we're looking at, well, just stay at home or make sure that you buy all these different materials to stock up on. And not everybody has the buying power to do so, okay? A lot of Americans literally live paycheck to paycheck. So that idea that they can stock up on cans and water and a bunch of other necessities is not everybody's situation, okay? So again, to understand that this is not an individual problem, this is not an individual issue, this is a shared problem. Because then again, higher education is not a democratic idea. It becomes one of exclusion. Okay, so talking about diversity, if you cannot buy the textbook, then you cannot have a seat at the table. If you do not engage with your material in courses, then your voice isn't being heard. So information privilege is a reality, and a lot of that is being manned by publishers, because literally, if you look at a lot of textbooks, they don't really change, but they have to be, they have to give another edition every 2 to 3 years. And the price keeps going up because publishers do not make money off of used copies. So just by changing the cover and maybe moving some chapters around, that gives them the full right to hike up the price by $50. Okay, so information privilege is real. So I just wanted to show you this graphic that shows our consumer behavior as a country. And if you see there in the orange, our credit, our amount of debt kind of, has been somewhat stable. But when you look at student loan debt, it just completely skyrockets. Okay. Specifically, if I wanted to talk about my college, Miami-Dade College, if you go as a full-time student, which means 4 classes, 12 credits a semester. So if you look at fall and spring, on average, students spend $1,500 on textbooks alone. That's the cost of a semester. So if they wanted to get ahead and take some courses in the summer, that's the money that they could use to do so instead of spending it on textbooks. And if you really take it up a notch, if you look at the first 2 years of a college education, they're pretty much introductory courses, right? So you look at 2 years of English, 2 years of math, 2 years of social sciences, 2 years of science, and some electives. And that's foundational knowledge that's been around for hundreds of years, okay? A lot of that is already available free and online. And I'm going to show you some examples in a little bit, okay? This particular image shows you how the cost of textbooks in just over 30, 40 years has increased at a rate that completely outbids our consumer behavior. Okay, so you see headlines that will tell you constantly the cost of textbooks have risen 300%, 1,000%, and we're not paying attention to it. So this is where we arrive at the question, well, what can we do? Okay, tuition and fees, that's not decided by us. Room and board, not every college has the real estate to provide dorms that are affordable. And also the reality of our students, we have, at least for Miami-Dade College, we have a lot of part-time students. We have students that definitely work. Learning is not their only responsibility. They have families, they have children, they have a lot of things that they have to pay for, worry for, and be responsible for. So this is one area that we can, as students, as faculty, as administrators, we can have an active say in how we can control this, this cost. Okay, so we're looking at books and supplies. So here we arrive at OER. Okay, OER is not a project. It's not something that's brand spanking new. It's a movement, and it started probably a good 20 years ago. Okay. And it's exploded because of the need, okay? So you have universities that were the trailblazers like MIT, okay? And of course, a lot of the ones that I'm mentioning, they have something that a lot of us, the smaller colleges or the smaller universities don't have. They have funding. So MIT has actually been doing what a lot of us have been frantically scrambling to do in the last 3 weeks, put all of our course material online. They've been doing it for 20 years. And they've actually had it marked as open licensed, which means you can have access to it for free. And you can reuse it, remix it, do as it, personalize it, customize it at will, as long as you give attribution. So as long as you give credit to whom you're getting it from, you're good, okay? You also have universities, well, besides MIT and Open SUNY, you also have states that have dedicated funds for this type of movement, like Open Oregon, Open Michigan, Open Texas, Open California. So this is not just something that's happening in higher ed, because if you look at K through 12, depending what neighborhood your school's in, is the funding that the school gets. And this, by using OERs, open educational resources, that completely breaks away from the idea that, well, why can't students in inner city schools have the same access to tools that affluent neighborhoods or affluent schools have, okay? So please keep in mind that UNESCO University of Oxford, the Hewlett Foundation have been the big players in a lot of OER building, okay? And if you're in a community college or any college that have associate's degrees or the 2 years, a lot of that material is already out there, okay? And it doesn't take away from a faculty's academic freedom because they can pick and choose what works for them. They don't have to commit to just a one size fits all because we know that a one size does not fit all, okay? So this is what I was telling you about when it comes to open educational resources, okay? You can reuse the work to fit your own purposes. You can revise it. You can put in your own information into a particular chapter that you think works best for you and your students. You can adapt it. You can redistribute it, okay? So students are not waiting for their financial aid money to come in. They already have access to it from day one, okay? And what's even better is that after they're done with your course, they can keep the material. So let's say they're taking an introductory math course and they're done with it, and then they move on to a more advanced math class, they can still retain that information to use as, okay, what came before this formula or what came before this concept, okay, and build upon their learning. So another thing to consider is how does OER affect pedagogy? Okay, it actually has shown to help enrollment rates. There are colleges like Tidewater Community College who actually completely rebranded their college by calling it a Z degree college. Z degree meaning from the minute you enroll in this college, you will pay $0 for textbooks, okay? So again, part of your tuition and fees, you don't have to worry about books and supplies, okay? So that really cuts off a lot of the debt. And what I've seen in doing this research is a lot of students actually have to take out credit card loans to purchase books. So credit cards, their interest rates are much higher than, let's say, taking a loan out of Fannie Mae or Sallie Mae, okay? They also affect passing rate because you have access to the material. And also a lot of students have found that the material is way more relevant to them because the professor has invested time in curating a lot of this material. It makes learning a little bit more accessible, okay? A lot of textbooks are at another type of reading level and also talk a lot about theory, but when it comes to real life application, and this is where if you use some OERs, you can do that. You can make it more relevant to students and to it could be localized. It could be more case scenario wise. So there's a lot of things that you can look at and see how you can play with this. And what I love as a librarian is that it creates a higher level of scholarship. There's something called open pedagogy in which you entrust your students. So this is an assignment and an example. You entrust your students to create the textbook for the course. And there you can vet their information literacy. You can see how they cobble things together, how they cite things, and show, and you can really assess understanding of the content by seeing what are the examples that they're providing, okay? So all in all, I think it really creates an engaging opportunity for students to truly learn and to actually put it in layman's terms for the next student that comes along. Okay. So as I mentioned before, OER, even though it is definitely manned and started in libraries, because that's at the heart of what librarians do, it really truly takes a village for this to take off. Okay, this is not pirate radio where librarians are like, browse me, look at, what I've got. It takes engaging students. A lot of institutions started talking to student governments, student clubs, and seeing, okay, how can we help you afford college? How can we help you enroll in one more course or graduate quicker if that's what motivates you? Or how do you feel that you can learn better? And in engaging in those conversations is where OER really takes flight. And then really talking to if your colleges and universities have Center for Teaching and Learning. Um, a lot of teachers have to take professional development or take on projects in order to continue their tenure. This is a good way to encourage this. And again, it's not just a one-time project. This becomes part of the fabric of the university, part of the scholarship that you're trying to encourage and kindle, okay? So here it kind of shows you how you can engage all the different partners and how that innovates learning material, curriculum, research, promotion, and really building a strong village together. This is an example. Miami-Dade College works really closely with OpenStax. This is an example of an OER platform in which all 2-year courses, so all 2 first introductory courses, have scholarly, peer-reviewed, open-source, high-quality textbooks ready and available for you. So this is called OpenStax. The only ones that they do not have are English and writing. But other than that, they have all the sciences, they have all social studies, math that you can think of, they already have it. And you can come and pick and choose, you can pick chapters, you can commit to the whole book, you can just use examples that they have. So a lot of these things are up and ready for perusal, okay? You don't have to go too far. This is what I was mentioning to you a few minutes back, how much, this is looking specifically at Florida institutions, higher ed institutions. So this is how much students on average between fall and spring spend on textbooks. Okay, and this is my institution, which is the same as 1 semester of 4 classes. Okay, just to put it into perspective. So this is where I pass it on to you all. If you have any questions or reactions to any of the material that I've provided so far.
Isabel, there was a question about making the slides available. Is there any way that we can do that? If you want to
Yes.
just email those to Beta will upload them onto the event website for all folks to access.
Will do. We'll definitely share that. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Carla here. And Isabel, I'm actually at MDC as well, so I'll be following up with you separately. And I actually just really want to reiterate, I don't know how many of you are familiar with OER or not, but this is such a really important tool. I mean, thankfully, when I graduated from MDC as well, you know, my first 2 years, and I was on a full scholarship, and every year we had book money. But my best friend, she didn't. And I remember when she was registering for classes, she would look through the textbooks and see how much they cost, and she would pick a class based on the price of the textbooks. And I've never forgotten that because this is an issue of equity. So I'm really glad that that, you know, OER is becoming more and more at the forefront, and that more of the faculty, at least, you know, at our college, are taking that into account. Because, you know, like, even though I qualified for like a full you know, need-based scholarship, I wasn't aware of the impact when so close to home it was. So yeah, so thank you for putting this together and facilitating this community conversation.
Thank you, Carla. Yes, I mean, I think it really gives us an opportunity to reflect on our own power or lack of power and our own privilege. Because I mean, really removing access barriers to literature, I think truly will accelerate research. It will definitely enrich education in ways that maybe we can't even measure, and really share learning. I think that that's at the true heart of being authentic and having our education be authentic and feeling that you belong. And again, really dismantling that one voice, that one narrative that we constantly get in higher education of ivory tower. And I mean, from my own perspective, for example, I'm a lover of history, um, even medieval history. And when I read those textbooks and I hear those narratives, a lot of the time I just hear male voices, male white voices, and I'm like, well, where's everybody else? And I think that by using OER, we can definitely give voice to the ones that have been marginalized. We can make diversity real in our curriculum, because it definitely has been exclusive for so long. And now that we have access to all these tools, to the internet, to digitization, to all these different things, that gives us the power and the chance to change. So that's my bit. Any other questions before I showed two more things?
Isabel, with an eye on the clock, maybe if there's any way that you can shoot your email into the chat so folks can follow up as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Put that
Awesome.
up there. Thank you. All right. Right before I share my email, I just wanted to make sure that you can see just a quick overview, how we can innovate teaching, bring down the cost savings. And OER is also the resources that we already have access to in the library, okay? A lot of academic journals that we have access to could easily, just the access to one journal could cost $12,000 a year. So I mean, that we're not using this adequately, very much so. So just keep that in mind. And what I really wanted to show, which we can see the benefits from the get-go, things like this, okay? This professor has actually used OER in his American Lit course, and he's actually tasked the students to create an anthology where they actually highlight marginalized voices instead of the ones that we've always listened to. So this is, to me, what makes OER powerful, pugnant, and timeless, okay? Also, you can localize. So you're looking at Intro to Sociology, but you can look at Intro to Sociology in Florida or Intro to Sociology in Canada. So again, to make things relevant to students. Okay, and a lot of the time, a lot of people, again, where does the funding come from? I highlighted that some universities have grants, there are foundations that give money to this every year. There's a lot of state mandated legislation that's giving money to this. So again, just some things to consider when you're looking at OER. So let me actually share. There it is, the chat, my email. All right, and I'm going to put the first slide so you guys can all see my information there as well.
And Isabel, there's one question about any laws that prohibit published textbook written by professors onto their students, imposing a published textbook written by a professor onto their students. Do you have any insights on that, and whether there are any laws that prohibit that?
Well, the thing that's going on, that's been going on in higher education for so long, is that faculty members, again, by the nature of higher education, have been encouraged to publish, right? But when they publish, they usually give it to a well-known publisher or to an exclusive journal, that once they give it to that entity, they no longer have full control over it. So it's behind a paywall, okay? And this is why now a lot of faculty members and even people in the scientific community, like in the middle of this pandemic, they're not publishing through these exclusive journals. They're publishing through OER, just with an OER license, which is called Creative Commons, which means it's open access. Everyone can read it. Because a lot of the time when faculty members or students who are conducting research, they find something on Google or Google Scholar, and then they want to click on it, and then it says, it could be yours for $35, $50. That's a paywall, and that's information privilege. So if you don't have the money, if you're not part of a particular social class, if you don't have that buying power, then you're excluded from that information. Okay, so I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Isabel. Carla, do you have a quick question or?
Oh, yeah, I just wasn't sure if this went until 10:45 or 11.
It did, 10:45. So
Okay.
unfortunately, we're going to have to
Yeah.
quickly transition into the next session. But thank you so much, Isabel, and thanks to all the folks for joining us. And this recording will be sent to you with all the other recordings in 2 weeks.
Thank you all, and thank you, Dustin.
Of course. Bye, folks.